Hi, this is Sean Ferrick from Trek Culture. You are listening to Spock the Week podcast.
Welcome back to Spock the Week. I'm your host, JJ, aka the Alba Android, and as always, I am joined by my fellow host, Gregor, aka the Crabbit Ginger. Welcome, Gregor.
Good evening, JJ.
And also this week, we are joined by our guest, the commanding officer of the USS Alba, a Starfleet International chapter based in Scotland, in Edinburgh specifically. Welcome, Eilidh. Thank you for joining us on Spock the Week.
Hi.
Just hi? Do we need to put money in? How does this work?
Well, I don't know.
I think that was enough.
Before. You tell me what I'm supposed to do.
I think that was enough, and I think if a better host would have maybe got a little bit more out of you, But that's just my opinion. But
Oh, there we go. Throw out the line, and Gregor bites every time. Joking aside, Eilidh, thank you very much for joining us. Each week here on Spock the Week, we're going to talk about Star Trek based around a topic, and this week we are going to be having our conversation based around Mr. Spock. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Spock, probably one of the most iconic characters in Star Trek. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody has quoted him. Everybody knows the Vulcan salute or the Vulcan hello, whatever you want to call it. So Eilidh, Mr. Spock, he's a big influence for you, isn't he?
Yes, massive.
So could you tell us a little bit about how when you first discovered Star Trek and Mr. Spock, what his character was to you and how he influenced you in such a positive way?
Yes, of course. So I always knew that Star Trek existed because my parents liked it, and of course they saw it when it first came around. I never actually watched it myself until 2012, which was the year I turned 30. It was the way I came across it actually was procrastination. I was supposed to be writing an essay for my Gallic degree, and I didn't want to actually work on it at the time, so I was doing the channel flicking, and I came across film 4, and it was Star Trek, and I thought, Dad's talked about that. I'll watch it and see what it's like. I turned it on, and it wasn't right at the very beginning. I can't even remember how far through it was, but it was Star Trek the Motion Picture, and it was as the doors opened and Spock walked onto the bridge in his black robes, and I was just like, well, it was because he's different with the pointed ears and the deadpan face. There was just something about him, and then he spoke, and I was just like hooked completely. So I watched the whole thing and then watched it on +1 to get the beginning, which I'd missed. What attracted me specifically at that moment was realizing the control of emotion. So I'll explain that a little bit, why that was of a great appeal. All through my teenage years and into my 20s, and right up to probably 30 obviously, I had the most horrendous temper and basically no control over my emotions, which was causing loads of problems with studying, life in general, relationships with family, relationships with people at university, and trying to find work. Because if one thing just went slightly wrong, I went ape, like mental. And I needed to find somebody who was a role model. Normally that would be my dad, because he's a role model for everything else, but guess where I inherited the temper from? I couldn't turn to my dad as a role model for getting rid of a bad temper. I needed somebody cool, calm, logical, who didn't not have emotion, because what a lot of people forget is Vulcans don't have no emotions. They control and suppress them. and will use them to sort of like fuel their search for logic and everything. When I then realized that that's what Spock did, I went back and started reading about him. I went on Wikipedia, I found everything I could about Spock. That's how I found Starfleet International, in fact. But I started using meditation and modeling myself on him. I asked my parents for the original series box set for my birthday. They were surprised because I'd never mentioned Star Trek before. And I watched every single Spock-centric episode and literally modeled myself and the way I would deal with people on the way Spock would react in different situations. Since 2012, I think that's when everything started going up and I started not having problems with getting things done on time. Relationships with people were much better, didn't have problems finding work. So Spock and Star Trek specifically were a massive influence for good. I wish I'd kept the message. On just before my 30th, which would have been August, I had contacted Leonard Nimoy on Facebook and he responded on my 30th to say happy birthday. And I had explained why he was such a big influence and what had happened and everything. I was really open with him. And he said that the fact that what he had done all those years ago could impact somebody now meant the world to him. And I stupidly deleted it.
But the thing is, you've got that memory. You have that memory,
Yeah.
and that's I mean, that's an amazing thing when you get a response from it. Because I mean, we all do it. We all, for those of us on Twitter, we all do that little tag people in our favourite actors, and we go, "Oh, you're so amazing." Yeah, some people do it better than others. Some people completely fanboy or fangirl out. But when you get that response, even if it's just a Mary Chifo liked your tweet, you know, it's like, or in Adam Nimoy or Terry Farrell or, you know, anybody that's on Twitter,
If they respond.
It's an amazing thing. But like you say, when you tell them that what they've done has been a big impact, that's gratification for you know, for everybody, you know, is that wow. And it's an amazing thing that he actually responded to you and said, you know, brilliant, well done, thank you.
I know, I'm really glad I was able to tell him. And then in 2016, I bumped into Adam Nimoy at Destination Star Trek before his talk, because I knew he'd be busy after the talk with people wanting to meet him, and I wanted the chance. So I like spotted him at a stall and just went over and spoke to him and told him what an impact his dad had been, and that in my writing, my first sci-fi novel, I'm dedicating it to Leonard Nimoy, and he just gave me the massivest hug ever. And I realised that his hands look exactly like his dad's, so that made my day, to be able to tell him that his dad had been special, even though I never met him.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we sort of talked about bringing you on for this episode, because of how much, you know, I mean, you're not just the only one. Let's be plain. There are other people there that like Mr. Spock or Leonard Nimoy. But yeah, that's why we wanted to bring you on and have a little chit chat with you about this. So yeah, brilliant. I mean, that says a lot about the original series and the character Spock in general, that even a show that was created in the 60s can still influence people today. I just, not in preparation for this episode, but just because I thought, you know what, I will try and see if I can watch some original series episodes. I put on and I just went random. Episode 17, the Galileo 7. And it was just by chance. I wasn't specifically looking for a Spock-centric episode, but I ended up with this one. And you really get a really good impression of the character of Spock, because you've got these human situation, these human emotional, you know, and you've got Mr. Spock being very logical and calculated in his decisions, like leaving people behind, having to leave. We need to leave 3 people behind in order to get off this planet. And everybody's like, you can't leave anybody behind. That's cold. That's, you know, and it's like, but he's like, well, it's a logical choice. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the episode, and it's a beautiful thing.
It's one of my favourites.
I loved it, yeah, and I will completely agree with you. I think it's going to be one of my favourites. I think we better wake Gregor up because he's. I'm assuming he's still there. He hasn't fallen asleep yet. But Gregor, are you still there?
You've never seen the Galileo 7?
Never seen it before, no.
Is that what you're saying? You've never seen the Galileo 7 until now?
Until now, yes. It's not.
God.
It's not
Call yourself
uncommon.
a Star Trek.
It's not uncommon knowledge that I have not watched a lot of TOS. Sue me.
We can correct that. You need to watch it all so that we can discuss my favourite episodes.
I am definitely going to be doing that, yes, because, like I say, doing my
Galileo
homework.
7's up there with one of the all-time greats of all Trek series, never mind TOS. Yeah, so started off by yourself, JJ, saying that Spock was one of the most iconic characters created in Star Trek. I think a measure of just how iconic the character of Star Trek became and the portrayal by Leonard Nimoy is at the beginning of The Wrath of Khan. And Nicholas Meyer, the opening shot, his vision was he wanted to encapsulate something in the opening shot that captured the essence of Star Trek. And he did that by a close-up of Leonard Nimoy's ear and then pulling out from the ear to the left of the rest of the bridge. Because he believed that people would see the ear and right away know exactly where they were. So that's where a measure or an indication of just how iconic the Spock character had become. I mean, by this point, he'd been used in the 1970s to advertise Heineken. At the time, Heineken's beer was, or Heineken's tagline on their adverts was "refreshes the parts other beers cannot reach." So they did a play on that. I can't remember the exact quote, but they did a play on that with posters everywhere of Leonard Nimoy or as Spock, caricatures of him. So yeah, that's how iconic the character was. It was interesting, Eilidh, because I think your experience of Spock's first appearance in the motion picture is very different from the one I experienced. That's exact same scene, because I was only 9, but I had seen a bit more of Star Trek than you had when you were 30, or up to 30 at that point. And so I knew who Spock was. And I don't think I was alone. I think there was probably bigger, more informed Star Trek fans than me felt like this at the time. Certainly there's people talk about Spock's entrance back onto the Enterprise, where he basically walks on and blanks everyone. And for what I thought at the time, oh, wow, what a dick. It wasn't
there we go. There we go. I'm going to have to put explicit on this now.
It wasn't the entrance back onto the Enterprise bridge that a lot of the fandom had hoped for, but it has its place in the film in terms of the narrative that they're trying to do in Spock's search for his place in the universe and humanity, and how it ties in with the V'Ger character. I think it's impossible to talk about Spock and not talk about Leonard Nimoy, and in particular the artistic input that Leonard Nimoy had, not only to Star Trek in general, but more specifically, to the Vulcan lore. Beginning with Amok time, probably most famously, when we've got the first Live Long and Prosper, which was Leonard Nimoy's idea, and that was the I'm sure he was making contributions towards the character artistically before then, but that's maybe the one that everyone. Yes. Perhaps some people listening will know that it was Nimoy that came up with that, but it's certainly something that's lived long and prospered since then. That scene.
I always like the story when he tells of how he knew about the idea, because of course it's the priest's blessing from the synagogue. That symbol, it'd be 2 of them out like that over the congregation. That is a blessing. It's that's the symbol for God's name, and you don't speak it. You symbolize it, and the whole congregation turns away, so you can't see it because it's that holy. He peeked. He was 6 or 7. And he peeked while his dad wasn't looking to see what it was. And that's how he saw the sign and realized that because the Vulcans are telepathic and it's by touch, that they wouldn't shake hands and they wouldn't touch the same way, that it would be something, a symbol like that. And he remembered it and brought it in. And I thought that was lovely. I think it was an interview. I saw him tell the story, and he thought it was funny that he was naughty enough to peek.
So there's no point in asking JJ this question, but what's your favourite original series episodes featuring Spock?
Oh,
JJ,
well,
you go get a cup of tea, because
I'll just turn the microphone off.
This might inspire him to watch more. So my favourite is probably, well, Amok Time, just because I love them going back to the planet and seeing him among his, his own world and the people there, and so more of the sort of background of them that makes them so different. And I loved his performance in is it The Naked Time with the PSI 2000 vibe, when he breaks down. And apparently that wasn't scripted, and he just started it and they did it in one take and then left it in because he was in the character and he didn't break out of character once and just broke down the exact way that he felt that it would be, and it was just perfect. So I loved that. And in The City on the Edge of Forever, I love the connection between him and Kirk. And you see how, even though he controls his own emotions, that he can react to the emotion of somebody else when he tells Kirk that Edith Keeler has to die. The way he delivers it and the tone in Leonard Nimoy's voice as he says it, you can see that Spock actually understands what Jim Kirk will feel, and that it's important, but it's a terrible thing to have to say to him. I can't remember the name of the episode. What's the one where with the spores and Spock ends up...
Shore Leave.
Is that the one where he's with Layla? He ends up hanging out of a tree.
Yeah, I think it's Shore Leave.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. I really liked that because he got to show a different side of Spock with the smiling and the laughing and the falling in love. And I thought it was at the very end of the episode when he just says, "For the first time in my life, I was happy," and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of things. JJ's already mentioned the Galileo 7, so this is the only part of the conversation he can.
Yes.
This part of the conversation that he can join in. It's quite an integral part. Galileo 7 is a good one for showing some of the distrust that some members of the crew still had for Spock at this time. Shore Leave. I don't think Shore Leave's a great episode, but I think it was a good exploration of Spock's character.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that you didn't mention that sprung to mind for me when I asked you the question was Journey to Babel.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That was the one that sprung to my mind, where we meet Amanda and Sarek for the first time. And that was a big episode. And again, JJ, this is nothing at all to do with you, but stuff like Journey to Babel, it all comes when you eventually get around to watching Enterprise, because you've not seen that either. There's quite a lot of that lore from Journey to Babel features in Enterprise, but don't you worry yourself about that. You've got DS9 to worry about as well. So
I've seen a big chunk
Journey to Babel is one of my favourites, I think. It's one of those things that they don't spring to mind when I think about them, and then I get prompted and then realise that one of the bits I liked in that was where they know that they're going to Vulcan, and Kirk just says, "Do you want to go down and visit your parents?" And he says, "They are."
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And talking of when you said like the Galileo 7, the distrust, you see that in Balance of Terror. Mm-hmm. When they first see the Romulans, and there's one of the guys on the bridge, just the expression on his face, and that's when Kirk tells him to, behave himself. Basically, you leave your bigotry in your quarters. And I thought that was good, because of course they see the ears and the green skin and go, "Hey, they're our enemies. He looks like them."
Yeah, but it's not a particularly Spock-centric one, because it's more about Kirk and the Romulan commander. It's very submarine type stuff. And of course, we've missed out the greatest TOS episode featuring Spock, which is Spock's brain. Jim, they've taken Spock's brain.
See, although that's not by any means a good episode, I think it shows that the good acting of Leonard Nimoy, that he could go through the entire episode and never speak a word until the very end, and that it was basically just focusing on his movements and his facial expressions, or just the interaction of the others with them. So I like it from the fact that you see loads of him.
There's a couple of things, because Spock's brain is a great drinking game.
Yes.
Yeah, every time someone says Spock's brain in the episode, you have a drink. That's great. But I can't, you remember the Magnificent Ferengi,
Yes.
where Keevan's dead and Nog wires him up to remote control the dead body.
Yes.
He walks into the wall. Keevan walks into. When I watch Spock's brain now, I just have that image from the Magnificent Ferengi and Keevan walking into the wall when they're trying to hand him over to Iggy Pop.
Oh yes, that's funny. I've forgotten
Again, JJ's missing out because he's not seen the Magnificent Ferengi. So.
Oh, you have so much to look forward to.
Are you still there, JJ? Is there?
I have actually seen Magnificent Ferengi.
Oh, you have seen the Magnificent?
Yes, because we covered that for. Did we not cover that for Aaron's memorial? I'm sure that was one of the ones we watched for as part of Aaron's movie night.
Did we watch that one that night?
I'm pretty sure we did.
No, we didn't. We watched The Siege of AR-558 and It's Only a Paper Moon, and we watched a Voyager episode.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it must have been mentioned then, but I did watch it I did watch it for some reason anyway, but I have seen it, yeah.
We did think about the Magnificent Ferengi, but the other ones that we did show were more Nog-centric.
That's it.
Even though the Magnificent Ferengi is obviously a Ferengi episode, it's not particularly Nog-centric.
And just for our listeners who have forgotten who I am, I'm JJ, aka the Alba Android. I am in the background. I am still here. I'm listening to everything these beautiful people are saying.
We just put you off.
Just talking about everything. But the thing is, this is a beautiful thing because at the end of the day, yes, okay, I've not seen a lot of TOS. I have been writing down the names of these episodes that you have been talking about, and I will go away and watch them. But at the end of the day, this is an
you can ask me questions about them anytime, JJ, because I love to talk about them. So please do. If you see something you love, you can message me and we'll talk about it.
I will definitely do that. Because one of the things, one of the reasons I wanted to do the podcast journey originally, like I say, was because I wanted to have an excuse and a reason to explore Trek, to go through all the different levels and iterations and characters and stuff like that, to really re-engage with something that I love but don't fully appreciate because I don't fully watch. I don't know everything. And again, like I say, as Gregor mentioned, Deep Space Nine, we're going through that, me and Gregor, and this is, like I say, part of that journey. So yeah, okay, I haven't seen a lot of it, but I'm glad that we're talking about it because it's educating me. So I am, even though I'm not saying a lot in this episode, I am really enjoying, the content of it so far.
I think you're actually quite lucky in a way, because
I'm getting to see it.
When I was watching TNG and Deep Space Nine and Voyager the first time around, I couldn't discuss it the way that you can discuss stuff now on, whether it's over Zoom or on online forums. At that time, I couldn't. It was just me and another friend that I had that liked Star Trek.
You got the best of it, JJ, because you've got everybody that you can, and you can talk to. And yeah, you're right, Gregor. And when I started watching it, I didn't know anybody that liked Star Trek. I joined SFI a year later in 2013, and that's when I then found this group of people and friends that I've then made who like the same thing as me. But I had to watch it basically on my own and with the vague memories that my dad had of watching it when it came around the first time. So you're lucky.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm feeling the love right now. I really am feeling the love. And yeah, I completely agree with that.
Don't worry, it'll be short-lived.
Gregor, I work with you on this podcast on a regular basis. I know how short-lived that love can be. But
love is a fleeting thing.
Oh,
it's always the people closest to you that stamp on it.
But the thing is, right, I mean, fair enough. Okay, the episodes, the original series episodes, I'm not particularly clued up on, but I have seen the movies, and that's where a big chunk of my Spock diet came from, was the movies. Yes.
I always watch the three back. Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home. I watch them as a three, so it'll be a day when I'm not having to work the next day, and I'll just one on.
I love it. I mean,
and watch the trilogy.
The two films that are my all-time favourites are the Wrath of Khan, pure and simply because of the scene with Spock and Kirk, I have been and always, I'm not exactly getting this quote right, but something along the lines of I have been and always will be your friend.
Been and always shall be your friend.
That's the one. Thank you, Eilidh. I knew you'd have that one ready to correct me on something. But I love that because even if you've never seen the dynamic between Spock and Kirk, whether it be through the films or whether it be through the series, in that one scene and that one scene alone, you really get that friendship between the two of them, and it's just there in that one scene. I think for me, people might not agree with that. People might say you might have to watch a bit more to truly get it, but I genuinely believe you do get a good sense of it.
You see enough power in that scene to
exactly
really understand. Yeah. Watching through TOS will explain all that for you and make it even more powerful next time you watch it.
The only thing that sort of bothers me particularly regarding Spock and that particular scene was, and it spoiled the 2009 film, the Kelvin Trek. It spoiled it a little bit for me because they went and redid that scene, but they switched it around. But yeah, but like the whole Wrath of Khan rehash, which is basically what Into Darkness was in a sense. It was taking a story that had already been done and redoing it.
And I stuck with the original story of the Harrison character. That had the potential to be a good movie. They did not need to do what they did.
Definitely.
And it's also the reason that I hate Benedict Cumberbatch, and I'm just saying that. I won't forgive him for ruining the movie.
Oh, I think that's a bit harsh because I mean I think he's a good actor and he played the character well. It's just he should never have.
No, he should have had at least an Indian play it. He was called Khan. I get over the Mexican like Ricardo Montalban because he played him brilliantly, but not Benedict Cumberbatch.
I will concede that point. But he ran with the ball he was given, right? So I can't really slag Benedict for that because he was the one that was casted for it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So for all the criticisms aside, I think he did play a good part. Was he the right one for the part? Like you say, I agree with your statement on that one. But that was the one thing. But what I will say though is regarding the Kelvin timeline films is Zachary Quinto. I mean, come on. I mean, does he do a good Spock? I mean, okay, it's not.
He does.
He does it well and he does it respectfully. I think.
And he was picked by Leonard Nimoy to play him. They gave him casting rights and he was chosen, so I think you can't really argue with that.
I mean, to be fair, the whole cast out of the films, I think the cast is one of the few good things about the film is the casting for it.
They do work really well.
But yeah, so there's
one of the things I like talking about them doing really well. There was I think it was one of the interviews after 2009 came out, and somebody had asked Leonard Nimoy what he thought of Carl Urban's performance as McCoy, and he said that it made him cry because he got it spot on, the mannerisms, the voice, because of course he watched all the episodes and studied him, so even down to having the little ring on his finger that DeForest Kelley always had, and the fact that Leonard Nimoy said that portrayal of his old friend brought him to tears. I thought that's a tribute to an actor.
I think that is. I mean, I can't argue with that one bit because one of the things that is a recent development for me, just as a quick sidebar, is I've started to watch more films. I've started to be more interested in who the characters are and who the actors that play them are. For a lot, I didn't even know about who Carl Urban was. I mean, to my shame, I didn't know who he was until I watched Star Trek 2009. When I first saw him on the screen, I honestly thought he was from the southern states of America.
You didn't know he was a New Zealander.
And I didn't know. And I only found out.
Interview speaking in his real voice.
I didn't know he was from New Zealand until I watched in 2020. I started watching the Netflix series, the Amazon series, The Boys. I don't know what it is about actors from other countries like New Zealand, Australia, America, but they seem to play better Brits than we do. because he plays his character is British in The Boys, if you've not seen it, and he does a really good job of it. And then I thought, hang on a minute, he's doing a really good British accent. Where's he actually from? And then, oh, New Zealand. Okay.
So you never saw him in Lord of the Rings then?
I'll have seen him in Lord of the Rings, but I didn't know who he was then.
It's very obvious when you go back and look. And of course,
retrospectively, yeah.
Yeah, they were filmed there, and I think that's how he got the part. I think it was just going to be a non-speaking part. He was one of the riders of Rohan, but they actually let him speak, and I think it's just either one word or one line he says, and that's pure New Zealand that comes out of his mouth.
I'm going to have to go back and properly watch that. But just
it was one of the riders of Rohan.
I will definitely do that. But just to go back to original series films, so I mentioned The Wrath of Khan, which is, like I say, one of my favourites for the scene we mentioned. The other film is the Voyage Home, because Spock in 20th century Earth is just the scene on the bus, the riding on the bus, and that tickles me. I mean, the whole film is a brilliant film. We've all, I think that's a really good, light-hearted film, and it's a good one to go to for me when I'm feeling a bit down and out. Those are the two.
Bit of trivia about that one, JJ, the Vulcan nerve pinch. Leonard Nimoy invented that as well for one of the original series episodes. There's one episode that you won't have seen yet, but Greg will know the one I'm talking about, where Kirk is split into two, and there's the good self and there's the evil Kirk. Spock has to knock him out, or in the script he was to knock him out, and it was supposed to be a proper haymaker, like punch under the jaw and throw him from one end of the corridor to the other. Leonard Nimoy said Spock wouldn't do that because he thought it was too violent a way to demobilize somebody, and he thought that using the hands, which are very symbolic, and again, like I said, with the salute and the telepathic, being able to feel through the hands, that he thought that a nerve pinch was a much more Vulcan way to do it, and he just did it for the first shot, and they went, actually, we'll go with that. It was much better. So that with the knocking out the punk on the bus, that nerve pinch was invented by Nimoy for the original series.
It wasn't
the enemy within.
That's it. Yes.
Funnily enough, that is actually one of the few episodes of the original series that I have actually seen and remember. Because
watch them in order so you can watch the character development.
I will. If I remember correctly, was it a transporter accident that split Kirk? So his good personality and his bad personality. Yeah.
It had to be a transporter accident because they hadn't invented holodeck malfunctions at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't have transporter accidents after the holodeck malfunctions came along.
I do know that at some point the original series does mirror universe episodes as well. Or episode. I don't know if they do
Mirror. Yeah, Mirror.
So I'm actually looking forward to watching that particular episode because I'd love to see the mirror Spock and see how that differs from our universe Spock. Because I think that's something I think was a possible missed opportunity. I think in Discovery was the fact that they didn't do a mirror Spock in that one as well. I would have loved. I was like, we're going to see all the everybody, and I was like, that would be. No, it's not happening. I mean, unless it happens again, unless we're actually sorry, Gregor, we're talking about Discovery.
I'm in a mirror universe where new Star Trek is just rubbish. I want to get back to my universe where Star Trek was good.
Star Trek great. If you're just joining us, this is a positive.
Coming back to your point about Mirror, I don't think Spock's that different in Mirror.
No, he has this. He actually, you find, without too many spoilers for JJ, you actually find that Mirror Spock has basically the same values. The fact that, he's not as mirror as the rest of the characters are. I mean, Chekhov's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
There's Sulu. Oh, wait till you see Sulu in the Mirror universe.
I'm looking forward to this one.
And I'll say nothing, but that scene, having met and spoken to George Takei and asked him what his favourite scene was, and the photograph that I handed him to have signed for my best friend was that one, and he just went, haha, that's my favourite scene. And it's a particular piece, without giving anything away. He vaults the bar in the bridge. I'll say nothing else. You know,
I think I've seen a meme or a photograph.
Yeah, you
of
probably
that
will
particular...
have, but you haven't actually seen the thing.
episode. Yeah,
that's his favourite scene. So yes,
I'm
and I plan maybe for next DST, if I have time to do it, I am planning to cosplay Mirror Spock with hopefully 2 others who are going to do Mirror Kirk and Mirror Uhura, and we'll go around the 3 of us together.
For the listeners, obviously I'm Eilidh is my commanding officer on the because we're all crew members, including Gregor, on the USS Alba. So Eilidh is our commanding officer. So you may hear her put me down a couple of times, but that's not because she's a nasty person. That's just because she's making sure this android behaves himself and represents the Alba in a very positive way. But I can't help but look at my Zoom call screen right now and imagine my CO with a beard and mustache.
Just a bit, really, just a wee bit of mustache. But this will make you laugh, because when I was, having said my dad knows Star Trek and he knew the Mirror episode, when I told him that I was planning to cosplay Mirror Spock, and I have 4 younger sisters, his words were, "Wow, you are the only one of my daughters that will look good in a beard."
How did you read that?
Please.
A massive compliment. Because I know that I would. So
I love
yes,
it.
I'm planning to do the whole thing, the goatee. I've got the Mirror Universe badge already. All I need really is the to adapt the science tunic, and I need a pair of higher leather boots, because they're proper, almost like thigh high.
I love that idea.
Knee guard. And the plan is for one of them has already done Mirror Uhura. We've not done Mirror Kirk yet, but it's going to be more like a what people call gender bend. So the Kirk with the gold waistcoat is going to be more like a corset version. So
that is something I really appreciate when people do that, because I think it's great that people have the confidence and to basically do a character that is not. I've seen like at DST 2018, for example, I saw a fella walking around who was cosplaying 7 of 9. Yeah, you saw that. You saw him as well.
The girl walking around as Khan.
As Khan.
She's got a fake chest on.
Khan, I buy you a drink, my dear.
Dearie me. Oh dear.
Oh,
honest, this is my life on these things.
I can imagine.
So,
but yeah, no, Mirror.
Just to bring you back on track for a moment, if I may.
Go on.
I'd like to talk about Star Trek 3. Can I just double check you've seen that one first of all, JJ, that you've seen The Search for Spock?
Yes, we should have done, because we've reviewed the films in Spock the week before.
So yeah, I mentioned earlier about Leonard Nimoy's artistic contribution to Star Trek. Well, Star Trek 3 perhaps was seen a sea change in the way Star Trek was produced, because it was the first movie or episode, for that matter, I think, that had been directed by one of the actors.
That's correct.
So Leonard Nimoy getting to direct Star Trek 3, which is, I guess, part of the reason why he's not in it that much. Partly because he was dead at the beginning of the movie. So,
that might have something to do with it.
That partly had something to do with it, but also that was an opportunity for him to spend more time behind the camera at that point.
Yes.
A lot of people say odd-numbered films aren't that good. I actually like Star Trek 3, and like yourself, Eilidh, I do think it's part of a trilogy. It forms its own little trilogy with 2 and 4 either side of it.
I think, to be honest with you, there is. I mean, to be honest with you, The Final Frontier is the only film that I have a problem with, and it's not a problem as in, I don't like it. It just doesn't. I mean, that's the only one that every the other ones are okay with, because I think is it that one we see Spock's half brother in that one.
See, people always say,
Cyborg.
but Spock's his brother. I'm like, I disagree with that comment. That people always think, well, we didn't know about Cyborg because Spock would have mentioned him. No, most people don't know I have a half brother, or had. because I don't talk about him. So it never was a problem. I never thought, no, most people, if there's a problem or issue or didn't know him that much, you wouldn't randomly go around telling people everybody that's in your family. So
nobody knew his mum and dad until they turned up in the Enterprise.
Exactly.
No, so. There you go. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, the real reason that I'm not a big fan of the Final Frontier is the whole God bringing them through and stuff like that. And turns out it's not. It's some. I can never say that word. The begins with an O.
Omnipotent.
That's the one. Thank you, Gregor. So it turns out it's not, but I just don't like that as a storyline.
I like most of it. And again, I will watch it, and I prefer it to any of the Next Generation ones, mainly because I don't have the same affinity with the Next Generation cast.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the connection that you see between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And when they're sitting around, and when Kirk says, "I almost lost a brother once," and I was like, you see that they're brothers, not just comrades, and you see that connection between them, and I think that's really quite strong as well.
I mean,
and when climbing up the rock and McCoy's practically wetting himself in panic that he's going to fall down, and I was like, you can see that the three go together. They're like the Three Musketeers. They have to be there.
I would definitely agree with that. Definitely would agree. So we mentioned earlier on, we talked about a lot about Leonard Nimoy's portrayal of Spock. Personal opinion, think he is Mr. Star Trek. If there was ever such a thing as a Mr. Star Trek, the guy that is Star Trek, that is the guy that everybody, I would say it would be Spock, because he is the only one I remember anyway. There might be a couple of others, I'm not sure, but he's one of the only, because there was two pilots, wasn't there, for the original series? There was the first, and he was the only one that carried over into the second pilot, wasn't he?
He's also the only actor that appeared in every single episode of the original series.
So he's never missed every single episode he makes an appearance.
Every single episode, even briefly.
There you go. Tell me, Gregor, does he make an appearance in Enterprise at all in any way, shape, or form? Whether it be a reference to Memory Alpha or anything like that, does he actually appear in that at all? Even if it's like a no. So that would be the only one. He
does appear in the Next Generation.
So he appears in the Next Generation.
I love that double episode, Unification, followed closely by Sarek, because you actually see that, regardless of him never having said it, that he really did care for Spock. But Unification is a brilliant episode. I really like that, the two of them.
He doesn't make any appearances in Voyager, does he?
He's referred to.
Okay, so that counts.
His name is mentioned.
The only series that he's not actually been mentioned, referenced, or appearing in is Enterprise then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that little bit of fun aside. So we've mentioned Leonard Nimoy's portrayal. We've briefly touched on Zachary Quinto's portrayal. What about Ethan Peck?
I like him, but then he's grandson of my all-time favourite actor.
So there's a little bit of regency bias there then.
Yeah, his voice is the same, the way he sits, the way he moves, the way he looks. It was Gregory Peck looking at me. He was very pleasant to speak to, very personable. Even though he had a sign up said no selfies, he gave me a whole stream of them. Yeah, very nice, and was again handpicked and casting rights given to the Nimoy family. I read an interview. He had to drive all the way out to where they live in California to meet them, to see whether he was going to be, given the go ahead. Mm-hmm. And he said that he nearly turned the car around several times because the feeling of going and meeting Leonard Nimoy's son was too terrifying that it nearly scared him, and he nearly drove home. But then he went and he met him and was, given the go ahead, and said, he sang, shouted, and cried all the way back home after finishing.
Because that must be. I mean, we all know how daunting it is for us to meet our to some people heroes, idols.
To go and meet the son of the person whose character you are going to portray.
To meet that, yeah, exactly. That must be one of the. I mean, that's one. Let's be honest with you. I mean, anybody that plays the part. I mean, so like I say, we've got Zachary Quinto and Ethan Peck. The level of weight on their shoulders to not copy the character, but to play it in such a way that it, it's respectful to the original and does the original without actually copying it and doing it well. I think that's an amazing burden. I think both of them, by the way, if Zachary Quinto or Ethan Peck happen to be listening to this episode, well done, guys, because you did a brilliant job.
I just love the fact that it's his job, but he was terrified of, taking on the role without them saying do it.
Oh, I mean that's fantastic. I mean, I can just remember the first time I met somebody that. I wasn't even, going to an audition or acting, and like I say, the amount of nerves and stuff like that. So I can only imagine what that must have been like. That must have been one long ass drive going. Well done to you. Well done to you. Appreciate it. We are starting to sort of draw to the end of this. I mean, we can always revisit this again later on when we go on to the later series, and we can probably maybe talk about the Kelvin characters as well in the future. But
there's plenty of material to keep you going for a good long while.
Well, that's it. I mean, we've got so many we can go along with. So for those of our listeners, all four of you who've seen episode 9 with our first officer, Ian Struthers, he nominated Eilidh for this particular episode. The character of Spock, and we Eilidh came along. So I would like to invite our guest, Eilidh Montgomery, to pick our next TOS character that we will talk.
Uhura.
So we're going to go with Uhura. Right, okay, so you've heard it here, guys. It's locked in. It's live on air. It will not be edited out. And it's is it Nyoto or Nyoto?
Nyota.
Nyota, that's it.
Nyota Uhura. And Uhura, just for interest that anybody might like, because I love anything to do with words, Uhura means freedom in Swahili.
Well, there you go. That's something. The Alba android is definitely learning some things today in today's episode. That is absolutely brilliant. I did not know that.
Just think how much you would learn if you watch Star Trek.
Just think how much easier this would be without you.
Just think how much you've got before you. The world is your oyster. You have all this to watch and then you can talk about.
Oh, it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it. I'm genuinely looking forward to it. And the other thing as well is I'm looking forward to getting, talking with people about their characters and particularly their favourite characters. Because for those of you listening, if you want to talk about a particular character, when we get our character list for the next recording, we put that out on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, and if you want to talk about a character, come along. We've got Eilidh this week talking about Spock. But it doesn't matter how many people we get talking. We could have 5, 6, 4 or 5, 6 people on at one time. Doesn't matter. Come along. We'll talk about your favourite character. So just keep your eyes and ears open. But that's basically what we're going to do, is we'll announce who we're going to talk about. One of the things we'd like to do as well is give you an opportunity to talk about the Alba, to talk about yourself, where you can be found, what you're up to, how to find the Alba. The floor is yours. Please tell us about yourself and the Alba, please.
Okay, it's probably easier to start with the Alba first. So we can be found on Twitter. You just look up USS Alba and you'll find us. We have the USS Alba Rec Deck, which is the public page. If you join that, generally, if it's myself that lets you in, I will then pop up a welcome post with the link to join to become a full member. After that, you then graduate to the crew only page, which is where all the fun happens. We also have a Discord channel for when members that like to use Discord, once you're a member, we can give you the link to that as well. You can also find us and other chapters if you are in different areas and want a chapter closer to you by going to the Region 20 website. Any questions, you can email me at co.ussalba@gmail.com. And myself, not that much. I am a book geek. I collect old books. I have a massive Star Trek collection, surprise, surprise. I have an ever-growing Scottish legal library, mostly huge leather-bound tomes from the 1890s at the moment. Eclectic tastes in anything and everything I can possibly get my hands on literature-wise. I write science fiction myself, and I have a very boring job in the government. That's probably why I write and like Star Trek, to hide from the real world. That's basically me. I love language. I speak a couple of them myself fluently, Gaelic being my favourite one. A few others that I'm learning here and there. At the moment, I'm learning Hebrew and Spanish. I think a bit like Spock, I love languages and I love learning anything I can get my hands on. So I'm always busy, but Alba always comes first and I always have time for her.
Thank you very much, Commodore Eilidh Montgomery of the USS Alba Starfleet International Region 20 chapter. Our good friend, our commanding officer, and a true Vulcan from top to toe.
Apart from the massive smile I had just then, sorry.
That's okay. But that's okay, because when Spock found out that Jim was alive at the end of AMOC time, he smiled, so that's okay.
Oh yes,
You are allowed to smile. You are allowed to smile. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If you've lasted throughout the entire episode, what the hell were you doing? You're never getting this hour back. It's gone. Say goodbye to it. It's done.
Yeah, but it's the best hour because I was there.
Yes, it is, and that's what we want to hear. At the end of the day, if we entertain one person, we've done something right. That's the most important thing. And if we entertain more, brilliant. So, guys, thank you for listening. I have been your host, JJ, the Alba Android, and we have been joined tonight by Eilidh Montgomery. And even though he's not said a lot this episode, he has been in the background. He is my co-host and good friend, Gregor Cameron. Our Twitter handles, our contact details for the Alba and for ourselves individually, we'll put that in the show notes. So please check that out. But like I say, look for us on Twitter. We will respond if as and when we can. Thank you for listening. You've been great. Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to Spock the Week. Tune in next week for more Spock the Week action, and never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on the catcher that you are listening to us on. If you want to follow us on Twitter, then you can find us at Spock the Week. Drop us a message, tell us how we're doing, or make a suggestion. We're welcome to all input from all our fans. So don't hesitate to get in touch and follow us on Twitter and on our Facebook page as well. Why not join us in 10 Forward if you like what we do and want to say thank you? The link for our Buy Me a Coffee page is in the show notes, so please check that out, and hopefully we'll see you there. If not, we will see you next week. Live long and prosper. It's up to you. As long as you come back next week and listen to us once again, we'll be happy to have you back. Live long and prosper.
I don't know why I did the same, because nobody's going to... It's a podcast, not a...
You can't say live long and prosper without doing it.
No, it's like a reflex action. It really is.